Good morning. Sorry to interrupt plenty of conversation I can hear, and also Bruno Mars and Mark Ronson just now. So welcome warmly to you all, and what a moment really. It feels like a real moment. We're holding the first in-person FEA annual summit since 2019. And for some of us, this might be the first time back in a big in-person event like this in 3 years. Now, it's fantastic to have you all here. It's our biggest summit ever, and I think it's a testament to the care and the work and the sheer determination of all of you here in the various different spheres of your work. It's one of the single largest gatherings of cross-sector leaders working collectively to make education fair. And following the pandemic, I think now is the time to share ideas, to gather our energy and focus our collective power on the work before us. And that's to ensure that every child in England has access to a great education. Now, many of us have been doing this work for a long time and will know that we are in especially challenging times at the moment. This year marks a decade since sector stakeholders collaborated to create the impact goals, a way for society to measure progress, and that progress in closing the disadvantage gap in education. Fair Education Alliance members have devoted their attention to the elimination of that gap for many years now, and our collective work has led to pockets of incredible progress for some young people in different parts of the country. But we see from our 2022 report card that at system level, the disadvantage gap in some areas has remained stubborn. And following the recent COVID-19 crisis, poorer families, and for those in particular in those situations, the gap is widening again. The disadvantage gaps at primary and GCSE now stand at their highest points since 2012. Now, the root causes of this stretch far beyond the school gates, and I know this better than many. And that's because of the work that I've done in schools over my 30-year career so far. We currently have the lowest real-term funding in schools since 2010, and despite the welcome and appreciated additional funding announced in last week's autumn statement, funding is not keeping pace with inflation. More families are struggling, and I see this every day at the school gate. We're seeing poverty rising due to the cost of living crisis, with the number of families in persistent poverty and deep poverty also rising. So we need a strategic, collective response to child poverty if we are to make progress on eradicating the disadvantage gap. Now, in our report card, and there are copies of this on the tables in front of you, but also online it's readily available, we argue in the report card for structural change within our system to acknowledge the different starting points, the different contexts that students come from, and the strengths of children and young people in our schools. Yes, we must close the attainment gap, but we must also define a pupil's success more holistically than attainment. This might mean revisiting the way our system values children's achievements. For example, we need to bring parity of resource, attention and esteem to technical and vocational routes and erode the binary choice we are currently giving to pupils between the preferenced academic routes and all others. This might mean properly resourcing a gold standard in technical, skills-based, work-related education to rival that of traditional A-level programmes. And I've been arguing for this since I first studied my master's in 2006, and the Deering report of 1996 was arguing many years before that about a portfolio credit-based system which allows children to mix and match their qualifications to suit their preferred work destination. Our report card urges us to ensure that every child has a route to meaningful employment after GCSE, and surely this is necessary to make the most of our young people's potential for the benefit of our economy, our society, and those young people themselves. We also need to measure and value more than academic attainment, which is why the report card also calls for comprehensive national data on the well-being of young people, so we can have a more nuanced and accurate picture of their needs and how well we're meeting them. We also need to consider whether our current exam system is fit for purpose, and whether we can be ambitious about the standard we believe every student can and should reach, without limiting the number who can achieve this standard. It seems to me unfair that our system sets up a third of pupils to fail each year, regardless of how well they do in relation to a standard, because of norm referencing. And so now is our chance to reimagine and put new systems in place. For example, instituting a GCSE accreditation system that recognises a standard of achievement, no matter how many children reach that benchmark. Because surely, if you work hard enough and you reach that standard, it's not fair if then it's not allocated to you just because there's a rationality of numbers behind that award. There is a significant number for whom in the system things are just not working, and it's a more nuanced picture than disadvantage. There are other aspects too. We need to support those who stand to benefit from the education system and to lead on the change that they need. And there are many, of course, who sit just above the poverty line and not calculated in the disadvantage figure. And so we need to think about those families too. We need to back communities to level up over the long term and to see that as a collective action project. And it also means truly valuing experiences and perspectives of young people and ceding power to them. This is just some of where our collective voice can make a difference. And in this room today, I see you stakeholders, all of you together, working hard in your respective spheres to make a difference day in and day out. And the delivery organisations, businesses and philanthropists, researchers and schools that also work alongside you. There is so much power in our collective voice and action. And I'm also delighted to welcome this morning early stage entrepreneurs to the summit. And I'm excited to see the support that your bold ideas can transform in terms of the needs of students for our next generation through our Fair Education Awards. And we have people in the room that have won those awards in the past, in those early days of the impact goals, Right to Succeed as one of them, that are now making really significant differences in place-based change. I'm also particularly interested to see how we get to the areas of greatest need together. FEA members have directly worked with 2.5 million young people on their programmes, and we must think strategically to work with the young people who need it most. You are all here because you care deeply about every child having a right to great education, and today we will learn from each other, inspire each other, and leave even more motivated to push things forward together. And that motivation is key. In my time leading Mulberry School for Girls and then the Mulberry Schools Trust, we have seen pupils arrive at school with every card in the deck stacked against them. However, through multifaceted cross-sector support, I have seen pupils in the most challenging of circumstances succeed time and time again. And we owe it to children and young people to be equally as relentless as them. Giving up cannot be an option. So today, let's not give up, let's double down and find ways forward together. You are all engaged, in my opinion, in one of the most important parts of work in our society and in our school system that I can think of. And my experience of seeing that work make such a difference to young people's lives means that's why I stand here today in front of you and why I've spent my life, my career-long work in this space. So I'm going to introduce to you the most amazing Ugali in a moment. But before I do so, I'd like to say thank you to Bloomberg, who have been such a generous support and host of this summit. And to make this a reality in this space, at this time, at this moment following pandemic, we are extremely grateful. I'd also like to thank the FEA team and the trustees who are here today. And most of all, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you for joining us in this really vital work. And I thank you in advance for everything that you are going to do over the next years to make such a difference to disadvantaged young people in our schools. Thank you.